Today we're going to continue our devotional series on biblical womanhood by learning how to be a Mary. Welcome to Life Before Eternity, a channel on faith and Christian lifestyle for spiritually hungry millennial women. I'm Nia, and I'm here to help you find passion, purpose, and identity in Jesus Christ. Every Tuesday, you'll receive biblical insight, encouragement, and practical advice on how to radiate Christ in your everyday life. Why settle for believing? Live Christ out loud. My monthly performance evaluation never made my top 10 list as a secretary. For a type A personality and perfectionist like myself, I always left my boss's office feeling more dissected than appreciated or constructively criticized. Can I get a witness? Nothing I did ever seemed to measure up. There was always one more thing to improve, more work to be done, and more tasks that I had overlooked. When I had triumphantly handed in my written letter of resignation, I thought I had laid those feelings of deficiency to rest. It's been nearly a year since I left my secretary post, but somewhere in between the hustle and bustle of serving in ministry, those old feelings of inadequacy resurrected. Suddenly I found myself seeking more opportunities to serve and more responsibility in an effort to rev up my productivity and hit those spiritual performance goals that I had imagined that God had for me on a little clipboard that He checked off as He evaluated my service from His heavenly office. What about you? Have you ever felt like you had to bring something to the table in your relationship with God? Do you see yourself more as an employee of God rather than His beloved daughter? So many times we find ourselves trying to overcompensate for our shortcomings with more religious activity. Take Martha, for example. When Jesus came into town, she welcomed Him and made Him feel right at home. The standard of hospitality in her day and time was pretty demanding. The culturally correct hostess would have provided her guests with a foot washing, a meal, oil for his head, and comfortable lodging for the night. Can you imagine trying to pull all of that together without the kitchen appliances, plumbing, and food markets that we have today? I don't know about you, but I hate short time limits, and I get a little grumpy when I don't feel like I'm going to complete my task in time. Considering Martha's guest and the little time she had to complete her task, could you blame her for being irritated when she observed Mary resting comfortably at the feet of Jesus? Have you ever walked in Martha's shoes? Have you ever felt like busyness was the mark of spiritual effectiveness? Or that you had to be constantly producing or serving in some capacity, or else God would call you into His office and tell you that you're underperforming? When Martha confronts Jesus about Mary sitting at His feet, Jesus turns Martha's idea of fruitful labor on its head. But Martha was distracted with much serving, and she went up to Jesus and said, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her then to help me." But the Lord answered her, "Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her." While the world esteems results over relationships, God esteems personal connection with you over religious activity. When Jesus tells Martha that one thing is necessary, the word necessary in the original Greek is used to describe the base of something, or an employment or affair. Jesus is essentially telling Martha, you have employed yourself with many tasks of service, but your full-time job needs to be loving me. While it may be tempting to think that God measures our love for Him based on what we do, the truth is, God doesn't need you to do anything for Him. He is completely self-sufficient and could even create servants from stones if He wanted. It's a privilege to be used by God to serve, but if we're honest with ourselves, sometimes it's easier to labor for God instead of pursuing intimacy with Him. It's much easier to point to something you've done as evidence of your love for God versus humbly drawing closer to God and allowing His love to shed light on those areas of our hearts that keep God from having all of us. Asking Him to fill our emptiness and healing our brokenness pleases God far more than any impressive service or ministry we could ever do for Him. God is more concerned about your relationship with Him than He is about how many people you've led to Christ, how many offices you hold at your church, or how much you've given to the poor. Service is wonderful, but it's not our foundation for a relationship with Christ. There are seasons in your life where you will be more productive by taking time to fall deeper in love with God versus trying to push toward the next level of spiritual activeness or maturity. As we devote ourselves to our first love for Christ, pleasing and serving God become the natural outpouring of our lives. Love Jesus first, and that includes meditating on His love for you as well, and labor for Christ second. Don't ever become too busy to learn how to be a Mary. Now it's time for you to respond. In what ways do you find yourself being a Martha rather than a Mary? How are you going to now start incorporating things in your daily activities and routines to practice being a Mary? Continue the conversation by leaving your comment below. Looks like we've come to the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in to Life Before Eternity. If you like today's content, please show your support by giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. It's a simple way to let me know that this content ministers to you and it helps other ladies like yourself find the show. I'd also like to invite you over to the blog at lifebeforeeternity.com, where I have even more content for the spiritually hungry millennial woman. Love you all, and until next time, live Christ out loud.